Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, episode 124. Excuse the dog barking in the background. I'm not being attacked by werewolves currently. This is a pre-recorded episode. I'm here with Jordan.
Hola, Jerrad. How are you?
Good. We have no Dom this week. This one's a pre-recorded episode, like I said before. We're going to be talking about some topics and some questions. No news this week. No what we've been playing. We're just going to be talking about this list of in the theme of 12 Days of Christmas. I came up with 12 questions. Some of them correspond to the number of the question because I figured I'd get a little cute with it, but as I was going through, it was too hard to match up specific questions with numbers. So some of them you'll see are matching to their corresponding question number. Some of them are not. But we're just going to go through them. We're going to talk about them. They're different topics. Some of them might range for 10 minutes. Some of them 2 minutes. It just depends. But we're going to try to get through all of them, Jordan.
Yeah.
If we run a little long, we'll just speed through the last ones, but I think we should be able to get through them. None of them are like hard-hitting questions. They're just a lot of like opinion-based or what we hope for. Obviously, we're near the end of the year, so I figured a holiday-themed episode would be nice. Question number 12. This one's pretty easy. Me and you are big fans of Assassin's Creed.
Sure.
We have been for a long time. A simple question. Outside of, I wanted to throw out feudal Japan because I think that's the easiest pick. What's like the next location that you want Assassin's Creed to go to? If you could pick anywhere, any time period.
You already know, Bo. You already know.
Let the people know. Go ahead.
I'm trying to be a ninja, bro. Ninja Assassin's Creed all day. Dude, throw me back in, feudal Japan. God damn, we've been begging for it. We, as the Assassin's Creed community, have been clamoring for this shit for years. I mean, like, since the start of the series. So it's like, dude, the only reason I say this is because, recently on the show, you and I had the conversation of like, dude, PS5, like next gen, what could be the better time to do feudal Japan? I just think that would work out so well, and there's so much you could do with samurais and ninjas and the daimyos and just the structure of society back then. There's so much cool shit you could do, but I almost feel like it's like a dumb, shitty answer because it's so fucking obvious,
Yeah.
But Jerrad, I've thought a lot about this, as you can probably tell. With this being one of my favorite series, and so there's other ones I'd love to see. Futuristic cyberpunk Assassin's Creed. I think we should get away from this whole we have to go back into the past. We have to go back in the past. We have to get into the animus. I think it'd just be cool if it was no, this Assassin's Creed game takes place in 2075 in this cyberpunk future, and you're not getting into the animus. You're training as, let's say your character's name is Max or Justine, and these two are, you're training as Max so that Max can be a better assassin, so that Max can go out and assassinate people, or with Justine, it's like you're not training your ancestor back in the day, and you're actually this person from present time. So if you just kind of took that whole section out of there, it's not something that, people are going to be upset over. There's no way, especially with how they've handled that situation with recent games. So I'd love to see a city. I mean, you could do so many different cities, I think a cyberpunk Assassin's Creed would be very cool. And then another, I'm just kind of giving you the top ones here because I really do have a fucking list of this shit. I would love to see one in America in the 60s, and you play as a character that is like a hippie, peace, love, and happiness and all that shit, and but then gets involved, and maybe he does have some family ties that he didn't know about or some shit like that, kind of like Desmond did originally, and then he ends up becoming an assassin. And so just in his normal everyday life, he's still smokes weed with his buddies and listens to vinyl records and shit, but then the way that he would kind of justify that violence when he's really like a peace-loving hippie is taking out these Templars or whatever, these guys that are gonna commit violent acts behind the scenes, or gonna commit horrid acts against the people behind the scenes. So he kind of has to. It's kind of a lesser of two evils thing. It's like, I don't want to be violent. I want to preach peace, but these people behind the scenes are gonna be the puppet masters. They're gonna try to be the puppet masters, whether or not I preach peace. So I should, try to take them out. I think that'd be a really fucking cool premise.
Yeah.
And then, Ubisoft already has a track record with like doing trippy stuff in games. They love taking you through trips in Far Cry, and so I think they could obviously do a lot of that with the hippie style stuff going on in the '60s in America.
My two, obviously, feudal Japan's like an easy one. Being a ninja is dope.
In Chicago, by the way.
Two of the ones that I've thought about that I would like to see. One would be Russia during the Cold War. I think would be really cool.
Fuck! Ooh, they've got a Russian assassin that's pretty big in some of the comics that I really like his character design. If you can just imagine some of the Russian sensibilities as far as fashion with the big furry hats and stuff, but incorporate that into an assassin's uniform.
And I do think like they have pretty decent architecture for it, and also they have a lot of like ghost towns, which would be really cool to like explore and stuff. I've seen the videos of like those free runners in Russia that just like climb to these tall skyscrapers and just like hang off the edge. It's like no rules and no law. That kind of inspired my thought process for that. Another one that I would enjoy, because they did have in Assassin's Creed 3, obviously you're up in the northeast of the United States. I would love if you were an assassin when the conquistadors were coming up through Mexico up to the southwest, and it tied into the Spaniards and that kind of time frame. I think that would be really interesting. Like a Mexican assassin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the Spaniards could be the Templars, you know what I mean? And they're kind of, Mexico's trying to have to fend off the Spaniards. Something like that would be very interesting. Those are probably my two biggest ones outside of like the usual suspects, that being feudal Japan and stuff like that. But I really want another one to take place in the United States during some historical period, because I do like playing in our country. As much as I do love going to all these other places, it's always cool to see. Especially that's like one thing with Red Dead is like going through the Midwest in the late 1800s. It's just really cool because it's like, oh yeah, this is America. Shout out to Donald Glover. It's just Assassin's Creed is so ripe with creativity in terms of what you can do with it, because the premise at its core is so simple that you can apply it to a bunch of different time periods and places that I'm really excited to see where they go. And with Odyssey and with Origins, though they've strayed away from a lot of the core Assassin's Creed tenets, the quality and like the size and scope of these games is tremendous. So I'm very interested to see where it goes. I think that's pretty much it for us for the Assassin's Creed games. There's so many options. Like I'm with you. I have like a list of all of these different ideas. We can go on and on. Question number 11. This one is kind of specifically for you, Jordan.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Okay.
I've already gotten a lot of my favorite, or like stuff that I wanted, like Victorian London and Paris during the Revolution, and even though it has lots of flaws, being in the American Revolution and ignite the revolution, I think was the catchphrase for that one. So that was really cool. So I already have ancient Egypt with the pyramids. Like I've gotten a lot of the stuff that over the years that I would have been like, yeah, that'd be cool to have. But yeah, there are of course still ones that
even Odyssey, dude. Like that game starts with the Spartan fight that everyone knows from 300.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like
dope.
Real quick, I just thought of another one. How cool would an Assassin's Creed in New Orleans be, Jerrad?
Ooh, on the bayou,
like some voodoo shit going on, because Infamous 2 takes place in like a fake New Orleans, and that's really cool. So, and
I would love India too. Obviously, there's like the 2D platformer game that takes place in India, but that's not like a full-fledged Assassin's Creed game,
Yep.
I would just love India as well because it's so congested with people. It makes actually being an assassin kind of difficult. Question number 11. This is for you, Jordan. Sorry again, guys. Excuse the dog. I can't do anything about it, unfortunately. I know you're not a huge fan of Deus Ex, but its themes are a lot of what you love, just in pop culture, right?
I love the cyberpunk. I love the look of it, and I definitely think it's cool. It is kind of tropey, but like the hard-boiled detective thing that you got going on.
Square Enix basically said that franchise is on hiatus. It's not coming back for a while. It's on ice.
Right.
Say in 4 or 5 years, we're watching E3. It's Xbox's stage. Like, we got a new announcement. Square Enix. The trailer starts. Deus Ex Reboot. What does that game? And obviously, we're going through a bunch of questions, so you don't have to say everything because obviously there's probably a bunch of stuff. But what are like some of the top level things that trailer would have to show you to get you interested in this franchise if it were to be rebooted?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say I'm interested in the franchise. I just don't love it, and I think it's the same with Dishonored, where it's like, damn, but with both of these, I want to love them because they are so cool. They do have cool stories, but it's the first person aspect. I think for me, and I know a lot of people will actually agree with me. I've seen this sentiment a lot. First person and stealth just do not combine nearly the way that I think the developers would hope that they do.
I think third person plays it way better. I agree with you there. Yeah.
It's almost like, dude, why? With Deus Ex, I get that you have the pedigree there, but with like Dishonored, well, that came from the Deus Ex pedigree, so that makes sense too. But still, I'm just like, why, dude? You're making it so much more difficult on the player. I won't get into it. But
so third person would be like the first big check mark of hell yes.
Well, here's the other thing, Jerrad, is the Deus Ex is one of the worst examples of, well, it's third person sometimes, which means that they already have the fucking character model ready to go and like his movements and his animations, because once you snap into cover, it can go into third person, and then you pull out of cover and it jumps you back into first. It's like, or if you do a finishing move, it'll like fade to black, play the finishing move in third person, then fade back into first person. So there's a lot of clunkiness there. I want that gone from Deus Ex, and the clunkiness is all over the place, in the menus and just in a lot of stuff. It's a AA game in my opinion, so there's reasons for that.
Do you want a new protagonist?
I think that was my main point that I wanted to go with this.
Okay.
I think, Jerrad, we're about to see a major shift. Well, I mean, you'd have to be watching it kind of closely like I do. But I think we're going to see a major shift in cyberpunk fiction across all medias in the next 5 years. Because we've had a lot of stuff that started to get really tropey. And I think Altered Carbon is a good example of that. Where it's like, yeah, it's good cyberpunk, but it's just tropes, and so Deus Ex is unfortunately a lot like that, because just like Altered Carbon, it stars like the hard-boiled detective character who's just gruff and is seen too much shit, and the cyberpunk themes are very similar. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of shifts there, and so I think it would be cool just in the themes of the game to go in different directions. Like, this last one was really about modified humans versus non-modified humans. You remember how they were like really playing up on that mankind divided? So that is, again, trope of the cyberpunk subgenre. So that's what I want to see them get away from. And like, cyberpunk could go in so many different ways. It's unfortunately kind of just gotten itself stuck in this rut of like corporate overlords, drug usage and high-tech stuff, like scumbags in some basement modifying their own body mods or whatever. And so those things are cool, but when those are the only things that you're focusing on in an entire subgenre, it gets less cool. So it's like, I'd like to see stuff like Dread, where they go into like the drug usage of slow-mo and like, what does that do when you're in a battle or something like that, so that's really what I want to see. And I know that's vague, but it's got to happen, because otherwise it's just, oh yeah, Deus Ex, aka Cyberpunk Game X,
Well, I think too with that is though cyberpunk is a genre that people love. Obviously you love. I really enjoy it too. It's still like a niche genre.
Absolutely.
And I think over the course of the next 5 to 8 to 10 years, especially with like Cyberpunk and all of these other things, the video game Cyberpunk 2064 44
77
77. There you go. Close. I think the genre is going to actually become more mainstream, which kind of sucks for Blade Runner. Maybe it just missed the mark a little bit by some years in terms of general audience. And I think
there's a lot of stuff about Blade Runner though. It's just a little bit too heady for mainstream audiences.
As the genre gets bigger, more popular, I think that gives a lot more studios and different companies the confidence to try it out. And when you have more creative people behind a genre, you have more experimentation. So people don't rely necessarily on the tropey stuff, and they just explore and do a bunch of stuff. And I think as the genre gets bigger, obviously there will still be tropey stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I do think there will be room for people to explore, and you'll actually see, them give like a more refreshing feel to the genre, which I think will be cool.
Right.
Yeah, Deus Ex is an interesting franchise. I think that if Cyberpunk takes off, I think that could come back in a big way if they, refresh it appropriately.
Yeah. See, I definitely think Cyberpunk 2077 will have some of that branching out stuff, so it doesn't feel so tropey, because it seems like they've got a good.
It'll still have some tropes, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's got a good grip on the subgenre of Cyberpunk, but it's still, there is going to be tributes, and they're going to have Ghost in the Shell Easter eggs and Blade Runner Easter eggs. I'm a little worried that you're looking at it from, this is a ramp up for the Cyberpunk genre, whereas I'm a little worried that it had its chance to hit that ramp at 100 miles an hour. And
that could be the case as well. Yeah, that could be the case as well.
And it didn't, because I really think 2017 would have been the year for Cyberpunk. You had Ghost in the Shell live action movie. You had Blade Runner 2049, which I just talked about how much of a masterpiece that is.
Was Ex Machina 2016 or was that 2017?
2015, I think, actually.
No, I think it came out sooner than that. I'll check. Anyways, go on.
It was in a January, so it's right on the edge of a year. But either way, yeah. Well,
no,
what
you're
saying,
right,
Jerrad, is
2015.
Yeah, there had been a couple little things kind of leading up to that too, and so I really felt like, this is the year, and it didn't necessarily hit. And I think part of it is because pretty much everybody loves sci-fi, but pretty much everybody loves Star Wars type sci-fi, lighter sci-fi, where it's gunships in space and light swords and stuff. Cyberpunk is a much more heady, philosophical, psychedelic, very trippy kind of thinking man's subgenre, if you will. And so I think it may never necessarily capture the mainstream, especially, Jerrad, as we move closer and closer into this future that's going to start looking like that, because it could even start making people feel uncomfortable, like, oh god, this is where we're, these horrors that we're seeing in this Cyberpunk movie or whatever is just around the corner for us, so they don't even want to go there and don't want to enjoy that type of entertainment. But those are just guesses. This is just stuff that I think a lot about, being such a fan. But yeah, that's what I feel.
Well, the funny thing too is with the horror genre, a lot of times horror reflects the fears that the current society and culture has. Yeah. And that's why it's it's going to be interesting with Cyberpunk. I do think it can grow, but there is a chance, like you said, it missed its mark.
I do think you mentioned horror. That's a great example. Horror, Jerrad, as a genre, I think we can agree, is never going to be fully mainstream.
No, because everyone doesn't like to get scared or feel that way.
Exactly, and there's going to be your Halloweens. There's going to be your Shinings that are widely regarded, but I'm starting to think that may be the case with Cyberpunk too, is because honestly, it's part of it is scary. Like you just said, people don't always like being scared, and there is some scary stuff to Cyberpunk because it is kind of a mirror in a lot of ways, forcing you to look at the darker parts of society.
It's 2018, and we still have a large group of people who don't get smartphones because they're afraid the government's always listening. So it's like, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. And dude, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think the reason why Cyberpunk is on shaky ground a little bit with the populace is because we're pushing further and further into, we are living in a very proto-cyberpunk world, Mr. Robot's a great example of that, where it's modern cyberpunk as opposed to futuristic cyberpunk, where it's this is the type of stuff that's happening right now that's very cyberpunk in nature.
people are watching the guy from Boston Dynamics kick that robot dog, wondering what the repercussions are going to be.
Yeah, they'll show that to their kids to indoctrinate them.
I think some of these next ones we can get through rather quickly. They're not too complicated. Number 10, do we have a favorite voice actor in video games? For me, as of late, Yuri Lowenthal killed it in Spider-Man, so I want to give him a shout-out. And obviously I could list 10s of 20s of actors, but the ones that I enjoy the most, Yuri Lowenthal, and I think Laura Bailey doesn't get the credit she deserves. Laura Bailey is
right
like...
now.
Laura Bailey's like out of control.
I think about this. So she obviously was in Spider-Man. She's going to be the main character in the next Gears game, which is crazy. Yep. You know, female being the lead in a Gears game.
Yeah, that's the thing is like you hear about big roles of hers that you've never even realized she was in, and it's like, whoa, Gears is a huge fucking game. You know, I didn't even realize she was in that.
Yeah, she's in Last of Us, obviously. She's like in almost every major game, and she kills it. Yeah. And it never feels like, oh, it's Laura Bailey again. Like I often really don't even recognize her in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
She tears it. You know, I can attest that she also, and maybe more kind of yesterday than today, but she tears it up on the anime scene. I mean, I came in here talking a while ago, months ago, about her on Yu Yu Hakusho as a kid. So it was surprising to see her pop up there from like the fucking late 80s or 90s. And then, yeah, like I know Troy Baker doesn't do as much anime anymore. These guys are probably making a lot more off of video games, especially if they're the fucking stars and they're like doing motion capture and shit. But yeah, definitely someone who is well known in the English dub anime scene for sure.
Yeah, so I would say Laura Bailey's my favorite right now, and shout out to Yuri Lowenthal. Obviously, there's a bunch of other voice actors I can list and name that I enjoy, but just my favorite right now, Laura Bailey. What about you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously I just did, but a huge shout out to Laura Bailey because she is really on a different level right now, and is in that great position where she's able to just show off how talented she is because of how many roles that she's getting. And so it's like, well, I mean, how far can you go? You know, we'll just keep giving to you if you can keep nailing them. And so that's really exciting to see, and definitely happy to see that for someone, especially someone of talent. Yeah, and then there's the staples like Troy Baker or her husband Patrick Willingham, Nolan North. There's a lot of people like Yuri Lowenthal. I think is a great example of someone who there's like lesser known people in the industry, but when you hear Yuri Lowenthal's voice in Spider-Man PS4, that's not the first time you fucking heard him. You know, if you've ever watched anime, if you've ever played a video game, you've probably heard his voice and recognize it. And so it's good that video games are becoming a place where people can reach stardom when they've, you know, traditionally just been kind of like grinding it out maybe in the American animated or anime space. So those are just a few of the names. I wish, this is the one question I wish I had known before, because I know there's other people that I really appreciate their talents and could have brought you a little list. Two quick shouts out to two celebrities that are known outside of voice acting, but I think do such a great job in their roles in the Kingdom Hearts series, and that is Haley Joel Osment as Sora, and get this, Jerrad, Jesse McCartney as Roxas. Did that surprise you right there?
That's funny.
Yeah, they're like really good, and these are, you know, people that you probably saw acting when they were young, you know, kids and teenagers, and still doing the voice of, you know, young characters because this series has taken so long to come out. But regardless, I think they do a very good job. And yeah, Jesse McCartney's like impressed me because he's also fucking Dick Grayson on Young Justice.
Yeah. Thank God Haley Joel Osment, when you age, your voice doesn't change. Because that guy, age was not very fortunate to him in terms of being a Hollywood actor. It's just the way it is. So
yeah, I don't know. He has like a reoccurring role on Silicon Valley, and
but what I'm saying is he's not like Hollywood good looking. You know what I mean?
Well, sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
but he's a good. I think he's a good
definitely
actor.
Fat.
But I do think he's a good actor. This is what I'm saying.
I think that I just don't think he's had like a horrible existence.
No.
I think he's like made his way.
What I'm saying is it's unfortunate because I think he's always been a good actor. That I don't know how I'm trying to say this. Not that his career hasn't been like terrible, but if he was like a chiseled looking Hollywood dude, I do think with his acting ability, he could have been an A-lister. You know what I mean? I do think he's a very good actor.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that happen along
factors. What I'm saying is it doesn't help him. I don't know. It's just a weird tangent.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's not a fucking stud, that's for sure.
Well, he actually like, and everyone looks their own way. I'm not trying to like bash the guy, but he does. He looks weird. Like it's not like
he looks weird because he's a butterball with a beard now, and you're used to seeing little cheek pinch type of kid that
he has
Sixth Sense.
Well, the thing is he has a very small face, and he has a very big head. So it's like a small face on a big head. So just, anyways, I love him though. Sorry.
Oh gosh, but yeah. Shout out to those guys, and also we probably don't know. You might be able to look her up for me real quick, Jerrad, or I'll just do it right here. The girl who plays whatever Oliver Queen's little sister is in Arrow.
Never seen Arrow.
Oh, you never watched Arrow?
No.
I could have sworn you've talked about Arrow before.
No.
Willa Holland is his little sister. Lovely lady, and does the voice of Aqua, which is my favorite Kingdom Hearts character. So shout out to her as well.
Real quick, what Dortmund franchise do you want to see returned? For me, it's simple. It's Dead Space.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bring it back already. Nothing much else to say there. We've talked about it forever.
Just to keep it interesting, I'll say BioShock. I think it's about fucking time.
That one's interesting. That's actually a game we were talking about, Dom and I. And yeah, it's BioShock. I wouldn't say it's dormant in the same way that Dead Space is, but I do agree it's dormant, especially with the way Irrational closed and Ken Levine left.
It wouldn't be dormant if we knew about a new one that was coming out maybe next year. Yeah. Because then that would be 2013 was Infinite, so that would only be 5 or 6 years, which is normal. That's probably how it's going to be for Rocksteady, for example. But the fact that we just have no idea about anything, and it's like we should, because Take-Two and 2K have the license, and they've had studios outside of Irrational make BioShock games before with BioShock 2, so it's like it's very weird that we haven't heard anything, and you gotta imagine that that's cooking somewhere, man.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't wait. A new BioShock is ugh.
Yeah, baby.
Here's one. What would you be more excited for, Jordan? Obviously, we've heard rumblings for a very long time about superhero games. What would get you more excited? A Teen Titans or Titans game? Or a Justice League game?
Titans, baby. Titans! That is my favorite DC. That's my favorite superhero team, period. And I'll just say Teen/Titans. We'll call them one team, essentially, because they're intimately connected. That is my favorite superhero team because, the Avengers, Justice League, even stuff like Suicide Squad, what they're about, especially Justice League and Avengers. It's like they're the super team. It's the biggest and the baddest, and they're here to handle the nuclear threat that's going down, the cosmic threat that's come through. But the Titans, I just feel like, have so much more that you can work with. Obviously, there's the being the teen or being a young adult
coming
angle.
Of age.
There's the coming of age, the young romance stuff that they like to get into. But that's all kind of just, dressing or icing on the cake, because there's so much other stuff, and especially the stuff that they've had going on recently. Unfortunately, they just changed, did like not a relaunch, but changed the teams for both Titans and Teen Titans in the comics. And actually, for both of them, I was really down with where they were going along both of those storylines. With Damian Wayne now leading the Teen Titans, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And Superboy, Jonathan Kent, just now becoming a teenager, and they're like, you're not a teenager yet, so you can't be on Teen Titans because you're only 10 or whatever. But clearly he's powerful enough to, hang with them. So yeah, especially with the current state of DC Titans lore. Also, I just got to give a shout out, man. I just watched episode 8 of the show Titans. Fucking really good shit, man. I'm not even joking. I know that you guys aren't necessarily interested in that, but that episode 8, was fantastic. If you wanted to jump in, I think you could. It's where they really solidify things. But that show, although I know it's more of an alternate take, and that's probably why a lot of people are turned off by it. It's not just the regular adaptation from the comics. I still think it has some really cool stuff in there. And I would even like if they took, a couple of ideas and concepts from that. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff to draw from the Titans, Teen Titans archives, I guess you could say.
Yeah, as for me, so like with Marvel, I think Avengers is probably up there in terms of my favorite teams. With Justice League, I don't know if Justice League is even in my top 3 for DC. I've never been like, I like the cartoon obviously, but in terms of like teams, I just think DC has so many more interesting teams than the Justice League. So like with Titans and Teen Titans, I would prefer Teen Titans.
I think the Bat Family is more interesting than Justice League.
Yeah.
Just the Bat Family itself, which is not like there isn't a comic called Bat Family, but they're a team. If they need to, like Night of the Monster Men is a recent example of like the Bat Family coming together and playing as a team. So yeah, I agree.
So for me, the decision would easily be Titans, Teen Titans. But if you gave me the choice, Titans or Young Justice, like roster, I would pick Young Justice personally.
It's the
same.
That's
thing.
what it's the same thing. It's just a different roster.
Exactly.
Basically, you put it correctly. Yeah.
I mean,
you'd probably want to call it a Titans game, but you could literally just take the cast from the cartoon.
Exactly.
Which, hey,
we got to give a quick shout out, man. What is it? January? I sent it to you yesterday.
4th.
Yeah, like, what a way to start the year, man. Young Justice Season 3. Here we fucking go.
I'm interested. I don't know if they're going to be uploading it all at once or if it's week by week like Titans. I don't know if they clarified. Anyways, speaking of surprises, what was each of our personal biggest surprise of 2018 in terms of video games? This could be a game that you weren't sure was going to be good, but it astounded you. It could be something in the news that happened that surprised you in terms of video games. I'll give you mine. Sony, in quotation marks, is my biggest surprise of 2018. Starting with the weird, bad E3 presentation that had great games, but just was all over the place in terms of presentation. People like to talk about, obviously, Microsoft not having exclusives and stuff. I've never, in the last 5 years, post Don Matrick, I've never seen Microsoft have anything even close to as weird as that was. Which it made it even more polarizing because the games they were showing were so great, right? Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, Last of Us Part 2. And it was just a jumbled mess. Then we go towards the end of the year, we find out there's no PSX. Okay, that's weird. Then we find out they're not going to E3. It's just like Sony this whole year, as good as their exclusives are, and I get it, NPD and sales numbers wise shows that that's always not the reason why people buy consoles. I don't think that's usually the reason.
Sorry, what would be the reason?
Specifically, console exclusives aren't always the sole reason people buy consoles. Obviously, the reason people have been buying PS4s, I think, is a lot more than that. I think it's like anti-Microsoft. I think it's a lot of stuff going in favor of PlayStation outside of just great exclusives.
Yeah, if you're making the decision now, today, or within the last year and a half or two, you might have been thinking about exclusives.
Exactly. The whole reason I bought mine
Sony
is
didn't have that
at the beginning. Yeah. So yeah, my biggest surprise this year was Sony. They might be my biggest surprise in next year as well. But everything they've done, it's so funny because I remember 2013 when they came out and they were, here's how you lend a game, and they handed the game to each other and they were being so funny and ha ha ha. And the hubris, and it has just gone to another level, and they've gone back to their old ways, which is so funny how it's all cyclical. But yeah,
it's so weird that they would let that happen. Like we thought, Jerrad, like, oh, you guys are turning it around because you realize how big of a shithead you were last time. It's like, no, you guys are turning it around because you had to, and now that you got what you wanted, you're going to turn back into a shithead.
Exactly. So Sony is my biggest surprise of the year. Sorry, it's not a game that surprised me, but they far and away were my biggest surprise.
I would only say I'm not disappointed. I'm just saying it's like, let me explain it this way. It's like if you came in and sat down next to me and I'm like, oh, Jerrad, meet my friend Sony. And you're like, oh, hey, Sony, how's it going? And then Sony just like, you know, decides to light a fart on fire. And you're like, well, that's a weird thing to do when I just fucking met you. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's Sony, man. That's just fucking Sony. I feel like, so I have this close personal relationship with Sony where I'm like, yeah, they fuck up all the goddamn time. And then they pull this shit and you're just like, what is your friend doing, Jarvis? What is your friend doing? And it's like, dude, this is, I knew it was coming, Jerrad. I knew it was coming. There's no way they could keep their head on straight for this fucking long. For a whole generation, they couldn't do it. So I think the lack of surprise from me just comes from the fact that I expected such. You know, like, I don't expect Microsoft to do this fuckery. When Microsoft fucks up, it's not because they're being assholes, it's because they're just not, you know, connecting the dots or whatever. Like, when Sony fucks up, it's because they're just being dickheads, you know.
Yeah.
They're just being these fucking big-headed
and I guess my surprise isn't from them doing it, it's them continuously doing it and diving more into it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
I think your surprise is certainly warranted.
Yeah.
Because especially someone that isn't intimately connected with them like you, then this has got to be off-putting and just a curveball thrown at you. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just that so much at once, you know, this has just been a whole year of them just like fumbling the ball and shooting themselves in the foot, and it's like, guys, you can't do this now. In mid-generation you could fuck around like this, but into the generation going into PS5, you do not want to be doing this, man. But they are. So we'll see, man. We'll see with this whole E3 situation next year. I was just listening to the Easy Allies podcast before I hopped on, and they were talking about how they're not going to be at E3, and I'm just thinking, like, why are we having this conversation? This is a stupid fucking conversation. I'm not saying that, like, Easy Allies, you're stupid for having this conversation. Yeah. I'm saying, like, this is a dumb fucking conversation we got to have, Sony, to be like, what are we going to do at E3 next year when Sony just, you know, is dragging ass?
Think about all the third-party partners that aren't going to have a place to demo on the stage floor.
I know.
Now. It's crazy.
I know. And it's like, oh, well, they don't want to hurt themselves because of, you know, they've already shown us everything and they don't want to, you know, blow their load for next gen. It's like, yeah, but they're spitting in the face of their third-party partners, and that is never something you want to do in business. I mean, dude, if I was Square Enix or
Activision,
like, I would be like, fuck you guys, and I would make sure to stick it to them business wise, where it's like, all right, let's you know, I'm sure they're in a contract where Activision can't go show Call of Duty on Xbox's stage like they used to, but I would do everything I can, push every loophole to try to do something like that, where it's like, okay, you don't want to fuck around with us, then we're gonna go fuck around with somebody else.
I don't think that maybe that contract gets terminated because Sony isn't even at E3, so there's probably contract language there, like, that there is a loophole there, like, well, if Sony's not at E3, then how can we be held from, you know, and who's to say if it's not a year-to-year contract thing? We don't know behind the scenes, you know what I mean? But it's just insane, especially going into a next generation. Like, you want to be friends with your third-party partners. Those are, like, the big boys for you.
Well, and not only that, but you want to be on fire, don't you, Jerrad?
Yeah,
you don't want to be, like, fucking, you know, like, cold as ice. Like, dude, people are gonna forget that you exist if you just don't show up at E3. Like, and I don't mean literally. Like,
I know
they'll start looking at their PS4 and they just can't see the Sony logo anymore. It's like, no, they're just gonna not even. They're not gonna the whole conversation around E3 2019 is not gonna be, yeah, this thing looks cool, but it'd sure be cool if Sony was here. It's gonna be like, damn, doesn't this look cool? Damn, doesn't this look cool? Damn, doesn't this look cool? And then at the end, it's gonna be like, oh, hey, yeah, you guys remember that Sony wasn't here? It's like, we're going to move on without you. We're going to have a good time. Like, you're trying to ruin the party, and we're not going to let you. We're just going to let you go, and we're still going to have a great party here, you know? So that's sad to me, that you would just let yourself get kind of, like, stomped on like that. It left in the fucking dust like that.
Yeah, it's people think it's like confidence, and people think they're gonna like show out and do all this great stuff, and I'm like, they haven't shown me that. What Sony's shown me is that they can make great first party exclusives, and they do almost everything else that's user oriented bad. You know what I mean? Like they nail exclusives, almost everything else. Like, ugh.
It's almost like they don't realize they have an audience that they have to like communicate with. And like,
I think that the great console
weird.
Exclusives they feel buys them the entitlement to do whatever the hell they want. If I'm being completely honest,
well,
and
not
it
even
has
that.
kind of.
I would say that that's second to where we got the biggest swinging dicks. We got 100 million units out there almost. You know, that's what it is really. So yeah, man, it's just.
But like, if you're already in that position, how hard is it to just continue to be good and give people what they want? Like, I don't understand the business practice there,
dude. Yeah. They already only have like a 42-minute conference, anyways. Their conferences are short as shit. Why wouldn't you do like a 35-minute, 45-minute indie showcase? You don't think they could fill up 45 minutes with like really cool ass indie games?
Well, and the crazy thing is, one of the biggest audiences for E3 is the United States, obviously, right? And the United States loves underdogs, right? It's just the way we are. We love cheering for the underdog. It's the way we've always been. Kind of just builds into our history, right? Of like when we left England. We just love cheering for underdogs. So, Sony, if you know that going into the next generation, that people are already going to be being like, oh, I wonder what Xbox is going to do. They're the underdog. What are they going to do? Hopefully they come out and impress, right? Because competition is great for everybody. Why would you just be like, yeah, let's make it easier for them just to get everybody excited.
I'm telling you, if I was Phil Spencer when that announcement came out, I'd be jumping for joy, man. I'd be pounding my fist together. I would love to see that behind the scenes video. I'd be howling at the fucking moon, dude, because that's like them. You guys are going to the Super Bowl together, and they're like, yeah, well, we like our star quarterback who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, but we decided to just kick him in the legs until his ankles broke. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's like, dude, let's go. We're just about to smash you guys because they have that's another thing is like, you guys don't even realize Microsoft already has the arsenal. They just haven't pulled all the weapons out yet.
Exactly,
you know? Yeah. And so you're just like, leading yourselves to slaughter, Sony. It's almost funny. I'm sitting here laughing because I'm just thinking of the smile that must have just erupted across Phil Spencer's face when he read that tweet or whatever. Like, God damn.
The crazy thing is, like, God of War obviously is doing great because it's a change to what some people, obviously me and you feel differently, people thought was a stale formula for the franchise, right, with God of War. I'm not saying we feel that way. I'm saying in general people are like, oh, Kratos is a boring character. Yeah, whatever. The thing is with Halo and Gears of War, from what we've seen, is those look like they're going to be, and who knows, they may review poorly, they might not be great games, but from what we've seen, they look like they're trying to take the franchise in a refreshing direction. You know, we're going to have Gears of War where it's a story-oriented game featuring a female. I know SJW is getting into our video games. Looks like a psychological, like, weird thing.
But wait, I know you were being sarcastic there, but, like, how is that social justice? She's just a girl. You know, it's like a female protagonist does not denote social justice warriorism. It just denotes that you have a female protagonist.
You just know, though, that when that game comes out, all of the gym bros that play Gears of War are going to be like, bros. The hashtag me too, and, you know, dumb people, really dumb people. Yeah. Anyways, Halo Infinite looks like it could be something completely different. From what we've seen, you can kind of speculate that it might be an open world Halo game, which would be insane. Microsoft.
It does kind of feel like that, doesn't it? That they were like, guys, you see what we're doing with the framing of the shots in the trailer.
Yeah.
You know.
And Microsoft's putting a budget into Halo, dude. If there's any game that's getting a huge budget,
obviously, yeah.
So they are shaped up to do big things, and I don't want PlayStation to fail because I do think PlayStation contributes a lot of good things. I mean, they're the reason we get a lot of Japanese games here. They're the reason we get these awesome, great exclusives. But at the same point, it makes my decision to get an Xbox over a PlayStation next generation a lot easier because I'm like, I'm sacrificing some of these exclusives now, but I can go back and buy them for a third of the price later on if they're single-player games and play them. And Microsoft is giving me all of these user benefits, Game Pass. They're going to have exclusives. When Microsoft has exclusives, what's PlayStation going to do then? Like,
oh, I know.
It's
I
like,
know.
yeah.
Once the cards are on the table, like, you're not going to have this this fucking, hyper power that you can just hit a button and use at any point. Like your horizons are not going to be going up against their Sea of Thieves anymore or something like that. Your God of War isn't going to go up against their
State of Decay.
State of Decay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say DayZ. Like, no, they're going to be going up against the Halos, the Gears, the
Fable, the new
Initiative.
Yeah,
the new Fable, the new Initiative game, the Playground, I guess, would be doing Fable. But, like, I'm just saying there's so much stuff that I'm so excited for about Microsoft. And the only things that I'm excited for from Sony moving into next generation are not the variables, which is what
constants.
I'm excited for with Xbox.
Yeah.
It's the constants. You're gonna have a sequel to Spider-Man. You're gonna have a sequel to God of War. You're gonna have a sequel to Horizon. Yeah, so it's like, okay, you're gonna have Ghost of Tsushima. You know that those games are all gonna be dope, right? Or at least I do with Tsushima, because I'm such a big fan of Sucker Punch and their pedigree.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, those are not variables. There's nothing. The only thing exciting me about them is the fact that I'm comfortable in the fact that I know that they're going to be good. I'm not excited about the fact of, like, oh, what is it going to be that they're going to do for me, because 3 of those games that I just mentioned are the number 2 game in the series. So I don't think that they're going to be, blowing up the fucking wheel here. They're just going to be refining it. And so, yeah, I'm so excited about the mystery and the anticipation that's building with Microsoft, whereas Sony, it's like, yeah, you're gonna be there and you're gonna have this solid shit, like Naughty Dog's not gonna fuck it up. But is that, you want to just rest on your laurels like that? Yeah. Naughty Dog is not a laurel that you should rest on.
Like, imagine when the next Xbox comes out and when I'm pre-ordering, I'm like, man, I can pre-order this with a custom controller. Even that simple small thing is cool. Just very simple.
Don't even get me started on the way they treat their community, because it's just so mind-boggling how you could look at Microsoft and be like, oh, we don't need to do anything there.
I want to get through all these questions. I knew that one was probably going to be a big topic. Some of these, let's try to get through them as quickly as possible.
Rapid fire, baby.
What if you could choose one Pokemon to have in real life as your pet? Who would you pick? Mine's easy.
Oh my God, Jerrad, these are not easy questions.
Yeah, mine's easy. Arcanine. First of all, he's a big fluffy dog.
I would love it.
Check mark.
I would love it.
2, you can ride him.
Love it.
Fantastic. 3, he's strong as hell. Great. He's like a horse-sized dog. It's super fluffy. 100% down.
Just based on what you just said, if I had to pick a Pokemon because of those parameters, Rapidash, bro. Rapidash.
And the cool thing with Rapidash is that it doesn't burn you if it trusts you, but it burns people it doesn't trust. So if somebody tries
that fucking cool, dude?
Yeah. Oh, I love that shit. But my answer would be Raikou, because that is the coolest Pokemon.
Good choice.
He is one of the 3 legendary big cat Pokemon, along with Entei and Suicune. And Entei and Suicune are both awesome, but Raikou is, the electric tiger, just like I like Zapdos, the electric bird. So I would totally have Raikou, totally ride around on the electric tiger. But if we're saying no legendaries and I can pick a Pokemon and also like have their evolution, bro, it's Eevee all day.
Yeah, Eevee's great.
Because then it's like, you can have Eevee, and then all you got to do is either find a Moonstone or a Firestone, whatever you want to do, and then you can have a whole other one. They have such cool, Eevee has such cool evolutions.
And they're just so cute. People often pick Charizard. What people don't know is, like, Charizard is, like, sub 6 feet. He's actually pretty tiny. He's not a huge dragon. So when people are like, oh, I'd get Charizard so I can ride him, it's like, he's actually not that big.
Dude, yeah, like me at 6'2", there's no way I'm riding on
There's no way he can carry you. Especially, like, the reason things can fly is usually because they have hollow bones, right? Because then they're lighter.
Right.
And if he's sub 6 feet, I don't even think he could carry a Charmeleon on his back.
That's a good title for, like, a horror movie or something. Hollow Bones.
Hollow Bones. Next up. This one, just say what you, like, this isn't necessarily... This game is coming out on this date. Just your dream scenario, okay? Think of it that way.
Sure.
5 years from now, 2023, Jordan, it's July. What game are you most hyped for going into that fall?
I'm sorry, what year or when?
We're 5 years from now. 2023.
Years, okay.
We're looking towards the fall. What's the game you're most hyped for coming out that fall? If you could have any game that comes out in 5 years, what would it be? For me, Mass Effect 4. 5 years from now,
this isn't a guessing thing. This is a choosing thing.
Exactly, like in the realm of possibility, but it could be something that we don't know exists, or you know what I mean. So for me, it'd be Mass Effect 4. Like 2023 sounds like a good year for a new Mass Effect game to come out. If I know Mass Effect is coming out, Mass Effect 4, that's what I'm most hyped for. 2023.
Dude, it's been a little weird. I've had a friend recently playing Mass Effect Andromeda, or played through Mass Effect Andromeda, and then I've been going back through Sacred Symbols, the Colin's Last Stand PlayStation podcast, and he was playing it. So it's like been in the lexicon for me, you know, been floating around me. And I just, like, hearing people talk about that game, like, there's no... And you're a bigger Mass Effect fan than I am, but there's no depth. There's no way I could describe to you the depth of the devastation when I think about Andromeda. Not because I think it's that fucking bad, because you know I don't, but because of how, like, it's on the level of what Sony's doing right now with their whole situation. Of like, how could you guys fuck this up so badly? Yeah. How did you put the fucking C team on this shit that hadn't even made a full game before, and then rush them, and then not give them the resources they need? It's
it's
directly... This is Mass Effect. This is not fucking, you know, like, oh, we're rebooting this franchise that some people liked. You know, it's like,
it's directly
like an obscure franchise.
It's directly tied to Casey Hudson leaving EA, and he was in charge of Mass Effect, and he left, and let's do all this stuff, and he comes back, he's like, oh god, Damage Control. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he immediately is like, no, we're working on Dragon Age, don't worry, we're working on Mass Effect, don't worry. He's like, he's probably thinking to himself, how did you guys screw this up, you know? Yeah. He's probably pissed off just as much as we are, because he loves Mass Effect. That was his baby.
Right. And it really makes me, I know this is a little off topic, a little bit of a tangent, but it makes me wonder and worry about Dragon Age, because it's like, is that a franchise that had to have Casey Hudson? Because I know it isn't, you know?
Yeah.
Like, those, I get what you're saying, he was never as intimately connected with those games, and so you weren't originally as worried when he left, because it's like, oh, well, at least the Dragon Age thing won't necessarily be affected.
That franchise is...
Well, EA's fucked this up so bad, who knows at this point?
That franchise is weird. So Mass Effect, great game, good game, mixed ending, right? In terms of 1, 2, 3. Dragon Age, great game, bad game, and I like Dragon Age 2, but it's not a good game. Dragon Age, I don't think it's a good... There's a lot of problems with that game. They reuse assets. The areas are... It's a whole thing. Dragon Age 1, great game. Dragon Age 2, I would say okay game. I won't be that harsh. I won't say bad game. Okay game. Dragon Age Inquisition, I think, is a good game. I don't think it's as good as Dragon Age 1. So that franchise itself has been all over the place.
Yeah, and I think generally people are a little, maybe not as hard on it. You know, not that you were being super harsh or anything.
Oh, no, yeah.
Generally people just think like, yeah, Dragon Age is a solid series. But you are right that it's like, yeah, 2 was a weird thing because, you know, I haven't played it, but I know that they changed a lot of mechanics, and like, it's weird to start a franchise and then immediately take a right turn, you know, and then Inquisition was like getting back to that, but then since then you've had all this shit go down with the studios. And Jerrad, I'll tell you what, you want to talk about some revisionist fucking history.
Dragon Age Inquisition?
Speaking of Colin's Last Stand, Sacred Symbols, they were like, and I don't want to get too far into it, but
yeah,
sometimes Chris Ray Gunn, I'm like, dude, I'm not sure that you should be on a podcast talking about video games, because he was like, yeah, Dragon Age Inquisition, like everybody fucking hated that. I'm like, oh, is that why IGN gave it Game of the Year?
It won Game of the Year from a bunch of places too.
I know. It's like all these fucking people, and I don't mean to single out Chris Ray Gunn. He seems like a decent dude, but like all these fucking people with this revisionist history of how mediocre or how poorly received Inquisition was. It's like, I think it's almost like The Witcher came in and just wiped everyone's memories from before.
I think that the same thing happened with Skyrim with Witcher. I think that's what it is too. Is like, obviously The Witcher showcases everything that Skyrim could have done better, but that game came out afterwards, and though Witcher 3 is great, it doesn't discount what Skyrim did when it came out, the year it came out. You know what I mean? And I think the same thing happened to Dragon Age Inquisition too. It's like, just because a great game comes out afterwards doesn't mean what those games did the year they came out. You know what I mean? Think of all the NES games that were considered great that are probably, in my opinion, a lot of them are trash by today's standards. It's like, that doesn't mean that they weren't great at the time they came out. It's a big old thing. I don't know. We're
Right.
we're running long though, so I want to real quick. Do you have an answer for it? 2023. What's the game you're most hyped for?
I'm sorry, Jared.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go through these pretty quick.
Mass
so.
Effect would be one. You know, there's a lot of games out there, but I think it'd be great, Jared. And the only reason I'm saying this is like, this is far enough in the future to where it's like, this could be a thing. In 2023, Jared, I want a dope Star Wars game that doesn't have a truckload of bullshit attached to it and is good. Not just the story, not just the lightsaber battles. I want a fucking dank ass Star Wars game. I don't care who makes it, who writes it, who acts in it. But I want the fucking Star Wars game. The Star Wars game. You know what I'm saying? Like
I want the Spider-Man of Star Wars games.
Exactly, Jared. I want the Arkham of Star Wars games. I want the spacefaring RPG that we fucking deserve, man. Get out of here with this bullshit. Battlefront microtransactions.
You make a solid Star Wars game. That thing will sell like hotcakes. Like,
Yeah.
nothing against God of War. That game came out to great reviews, and that thing's one of the best-selling games of the year for being a console exclusive. You're telling me if you put some love and respect into #Easy Allies, if you put some love and respect into a Star Wars game and it comes out with great reviews, that thing's not going to sell like hotcakes. Battlefront sells like hotcakes, and that game has all the controversy. Anyways,
Right.
this one too. Quick answers, as quick as we can be. What announced Marvel AAA game do you want to see next? For me, it's a Defenders team-up game.
Woo! Oh boy. Yeah, so that's a weird thing. I'll try to be quick about this, but like, it's just weird that we're in this stage of superhero games finally coming around, but it's like, yeah, you're getting a Captain America game, but it's Avengers. You know, I feel like we should be further enough into it to it's like everybody's getting their own individual games, not just the Avengers game, you know? But we're not there yet, and so I want to be playing the, kind of like you were just saying, like the Spider-Man of Star Wars games. I want the Spider-Man of Iron Man games. I want that Iron Man game that is like me flying around the city and boom, boom, repulsor in a guy's face and flipping over and then, you know, going over here. Ugh,
though it's not the same, Anthem shows it's possible. Like, it's not the same. It does give you Iron Man vibes, but it does show this is possible, you know, doing something.
The mods in GTA 5 show that it's possible. Like,
exactly.
Where are you guys?
I would love a very close-knit single-player Captain America game where it has kind of the axe thing with God of War with your shield.
All about
but
melee,
it's melee and very brutal and visceral, and you feel the combat. In the words of Huber, you feel the kill. Though Captain America would try not to kill and he couldn't. But like set in World War II, man, in the trenches, that'd be great. This is one too. This is very vague, and I want us to boil it down to a simple answer. Okay.
Okay.
As simple as we can. And the question is, what do we want most from next gen? For me personally, I want more AAA superhero games. That's my answer. With next gen, that's the one trend I want to see catch fire is AAA superhero games. Obviously, there's a bunch of different answers like streaming and cloud saving and.
I would almost say like you're quite literally guaranteed that already, Jared. I mean, I don't think you have anything to worry about.
I want to see the follow through. You know what I mean? Like
That's what I'm saying is we're stepping into the golden age. Well, you know, Spider-Man and the Arkham games are like the dawn of the golden age. So I think you're about to just, you know, be drowning in tins.
My fear is that Spider-Man continues as a franchise. The Rocksteady game comes out, whatever that is, but the Square Enix Avengers game comes out, doesn't do well, doesn't review well. And then Marvel's like, oh, well, we have Spider-Man, and then there's a snag there, so then there's some years of like, well, do we continue with the Square Enix deal? I'm afraid that we will get the superhero stuff, especially from Marvel, but it won't be as soon as we think it will be. That's
just on that, Jared. I'd like to say I hope we don't see companies signing gigantic franchises exclusively to certain studios or publishers anymore. I hope it goes well with Avengers and Marvel. Well, I guess they're not exclusive because
they're not exclusive.
Spider-Man.
No, it's just I like what they're doing. It's like a game deal. It's like you can make an Avengers game. Go ahead.
Right.
Well, even with Spider-Man, they had a re-up. Like it was for one game. It did well. Marvel's like, hey, you want to make a second game?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how I want it, because obviously what I'm referring to is the EA Star Wars license, and I just don't want to see that.
It's a dumb business decision, period. It's the same thing with the NFL, not to go on too long of a tangent. We're seeing with the NBA, 2K is crushing NBA Live, right? There's no exclusive contract on NBA games. With the NFL, EA has the exclusivity with Madden. I don't think Madden's a bad game, and I don't think 2K would necessarily make a game that was better than Madden. I didn't like 2K NFL beforehand when it was actually being made, but going back to competition, it makes each other push one another, and you don't get complacent. This year's Madden is the worst Madden that has come out in 10 years. I buy Madden every year.
Wow.
I see the improvements. This year's Madden is the worst Madden in like 10 years.
Is it run incompetently?
No, it's just the physics engine
nitty-gritty?
isn't very good. The run engines to be able to do running plays isn't good. It's not good. Yeah. It's the first one where I haven't seen at least some improvement year over year. It's the worst Madden in like 10 years. And I know people like to joke they're the same game every year. Yeah, I understand the
Obviously
argument.
not.
But yeah, there's different stuff there, and it's not great.
I mean, if you even know shit all about fucking video games, you know, like, it would be extremely difficult to replicate a game like that, you know, to make it the same every fucking year. So
yeah. What was your thing you want most from next gen? Did you already answer it?
No, you know, of course, I've talked a bunch. I want modular consoles, but I just don't think it's going to happen with all the rumors that we know at this point, with them basically being streaming boxes, or some of them, you know, one of the versions of the console. So what I'd really like that I do think is attainable is I really want us to hit that standard, Jerrad, of 4K 60. Because if you're Sony or Microsoft, I don't care who you are, presenting me with, here's the fucking next gen, bro. Here's that shit that you're gonna fucking soil your pants over. It's like, I'm not soiling my pants unless I'm looking at 4K 60, because I've already got pretty much, you know, 4K 30, let's just say. I know it's 4K on the PS4 Pro, but you can certainly say 4K 30 is ready to go on the Xbox One X. So I want both consoles, obviously not Nintendo, but Sony and Microsoft. I want them to come out with a console, not the Pro version of the console, not the upgraded version in a few years, like the out of the gate standard edition. I want to run games like just like all games run at, you know, 1080 30 pretty much this generation. Like, you can expect that as the standard. I want 4K 60 because that to me is like, well, why else are we jumping to a new console generation? And I mean, God, if you can't do that at this point, and then I just want other things. It's more about standardization, I think, is what I really want, Jerrad, because I want the fucking hard drives to be bigger. Don't give me a fucking terabyte hard drive when these games are almost 100 gigabytes each. I don't think we're getting 4K 60. I think we'll get one of those. I don't know if they'll hit both of them. Here, the thing is that I don't think I really believe that Xbox has a chance to come out with 3 consoles at launch. We know about the streaming one, right? The cheap streaming one, their baseline model. I wouldn't be surprised with the success. We saw a report this week that said that the Xbox One X is selling better than anybody anticipated. I wouldn't be surprised if for the Xbox 4, they have the base model, the streaming model, and then the big boy model. And they're just like, whatever gamer you are, if you want to stream Game Pass, if you want to have a normal console experience, or if you're a premium user who wants the top of the line experience, there's one for you. Go ahead and pick whatever one you want. With Sony, it's interesting because they have the weaker console even after iterations. So I wonder what the leap is going to be between them and Xbox. Xbox already has experience with more powerful hardware than Sony, just purely based on their iteration. So the jump that they make with next gen, the problem is that if Sony jumps up to what the Xbox One X is, then that's not really an improvement, right? Exactly.
And the Xbox
That's what I'm
One
saying is like, we need that jump.
Yeah. And I agree with you that there needs to be some more standardization in terms of higher quality. I don't know if we hit. I think 4K is more likely than 60. I would like both as well, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, it sounds right here in 2018. It sounds kind of picky, but I want my indie games running at 4K. You know, as a standard.
Yeah.
I want, and another quick little thing, like, if we could just get on where Microsoft's at as far as like the look and sound of the hardware. I know that Sony makes super solid hardware, but holy shit, are these PS4 Pros loud as fuck. Like, you get on Digital Foundry and they've talked about some of this shit, how ridiculous it is. And not only that, but the sandwich console look of the PS4 Pro is breathtakingly ugly in my opinion. So I don't understand how they got so far down that road of shit.
Well, the crazy thing is that the Xbox One X is way more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro, and it's quieter. And
it's way smaller, dude. It's smaller than the
Xbox
Slim.
One is. Yeah.
Jesus.
Couple of questions, and we'll close out the show. Do you remember what the last game was that you beat twice?
I think it was. It would have been Arkham City because I replayed the first two Arkham games for Arkham Knight.
So for me, I very rarely replay games just because there's so many games that, not that I don't want to play them, it's just I'd rather play something new than go back to something I've already played.
Well, you'll notice that was 3.5 years ago. I've
yeah.
kind of, moved over to where it's like, yeah, I'll read the plot on Wikipedia or watch a recap on YouTube,
The last game I replayed was Inside. That's kind of a cheat because it's not a very long game. I've played that every year.
Plus, once you know the puzzles,
yeah. I've played it every year on my birthday since it came out. It's just something I like to play through.
Cool. That's cool.
It's not a very long game, but yeah, I'm not somebody who goes through and replays through an entire game because most of the time the games we're playing are like these giant games. It's like I'll get in and I'll mess around with the game every so often, but to get from point A to point B in terms of beating the game again, not happening for me.
Yeah, dude, trust me, Bloodborne has been calling my name for so long, and I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just not gonna do it. Until we've gotten to the point where we're not getting Bloodborne 2.
We kind of talked about this earlier, so we don't have to go. We talked about this at length, I think. But I want to know from you which one of these you think is most likely to happen. Okay, the biggest question facing each of the big three entering next gen, which is most likely? Nintendo, will they be able to keep up technically through revisions and upgrades, and will they continue to have the third party support? Right, that's Nintendo's big question moving forward. Right, Sony's big question. Will their hubris continue? Will they implement more user-friendly features and get away from their overconfident attitude, right? That's their biggest question mark. Are they going to actually start implementing user-friendly things and be kind to the players instead of just, we have great exclusives, deal with it? Microsoft, their biggest question. Will they finally have a stable of great and consistent exclusives? We know that's been their biggest thing. Very user-friendly, a lot of great things for users, but were the consistent, great exclusives? Which one of these do you think is most likely? I kind of have an idea of what I think your answer is, but go ahead.
So, when you say most likely, are you saying which is most likely to remain the question, or who's going to answer it? Like, who's going to be the best at...
No, so is Sony... What's most likely? Will Sony's hubris continue and lack of user support? Is that most likely... Will that continue to happen? Is it more likely that Microsoft will finally deliver a great stable of consistent exclusives? Or is it more likely that Nintendo will be able to actually keep up technically and with third-party support? So two of them are positive, like Nintendo keeping up and Microsoft getting great exclusives. Sony's is negative. It's like, will they continue to be, will their hubris, affect them?
And what you're saying, which is most likely?
Exactly, yeah.
And which one did you think I was going to choose?
Microsoft.
You are absolutely correct, because that is the only surefire thing we have, Jared. We know for a fact that Microsoft is building this shit to, we've already been through, unfortunately, the phase this generation of them getting all these exclusives going and then canceling half of them or shutting down the fucking studio. But I'm hoping that they had to take those losses to make their gains better in the end, because I think that they really are building up this arsenal, and yeah, I don't have any evidence to support the fact that Sony is going to lose their hubris, or that Nintendo is going to be able to keep up technically, which I'll just say, quick tangent there, I am not worried for them because they've dug themselves into the hole, but it's like, you released a console in 2017 that was underpowered, and I mean,
earliest you could see them doing Switch 2.0 is 2020 maybe, and it's like, dude, think about in 2020 when we're playing these new 4K next-gen consoles and Switch is struggling to run Doom at 720p most of the time. I mean, that is rough. And I get that they'll get Nintendo points because people love them, and they'll even get points for it being a handheld hybrid, which I totally understand. But there's, lots of portable, super portable PC laptops that can do 4K gaming. Now, are they $3,000? Yes. That's a totally different story. But I'm just saying, it's not like you can't pack power into something small and portable.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the way they're setting it up, too, we know technically Nintendo hasn't always kept up, right? So they have a track record there.
Sure.
Microsoft...
But I do think this is going to be the biggest gap. When we see the Switch sitting next to... Because, Nintendo's always, in between a generation.
Yeah.
So the Switch is technically the first of these next-gen consoles with PS5 and Xbox 2. Scarlet, big boy. So, technically, Nintendo, when we're looking at them sitting next to the other two next-gen consoles, the Switch is going to look... it's going to be the biggest gap we've ever had with Nintendo, because we're used to them not being technically powered up, but I think this is going to be the biggest gap you'll ever see.
And the thing, too, is I think we could see a revision next year that's maybe not more powerful, but maybe more mobile exclusive, right, with the release of Pokemon. And I think that, I won't say it helps them, but if we go into next gen and there's a handheld, I know it's also a console, versus two consoles, I think that's better for Nintendo because then their situation with the Wii U, because the Wii U is a console, right? So stacking up to them, there's not an argument of, but. And I'm not saying that Switch doesn't deserve to be more powerful, but in that conversation, if you own a next-gen console, there's a reason to own a Nintendo Switch because it is mobile, it is handheld.
Right.
Whereas with the Wii U, there was no reason to own a Wii U over a PS4 and Xbox One because it's just another console.
Are you, real quick, you talked about revisions or whatever, you think they're going to do a dockless, handheld-only Switch next year?
I think they're going to do something more catered towards the Japanese market. That's more mobile-centric.
A little bit smaller. Because me, I want a bigger... Switch. I want it iPad 10-inch size with Joy-Cons.
If I were a betting man, I would say it would be a little bit smaller. It would have non-detachable Joy-Cons. It won't come with the base, and it'll have a little bit stronger of a battery life.
But dude, we just talked about this. You can't play Mario Party then on that console.
Yeah, I think that they'd either push an update for it, because if it's something affecting their Japanese market...
Those fuckers, if they do that, I'll be so goddamn pissed, Jerrad.
You have to realize, if there's something affecting, if there's a product for their Japanese market, they'll figure out a solution. You know what I mean?
True.
That's it for this show. Dom's going to be around for the other episodes that we're doing during the break. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this.
Real quick, I just want to say that was really fun, Jerrad, and really, really well posed questions. So, hats off to you.
Hats off to me. Everyone give me a clap.
I've never heard someone say, hats off to me.
Getting compliments is always funny. I like diving into it, though, doing the fake confidence thing, doing the Sony thing.
Yeah, you're like, fuck yeah, hats off to me, little bitch.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you guys for listening. We have a couple of interesting episodes coming up. We're going to be talking about our predictions for next year and looking back at our predictions we had for 2018, so that'll be interesting. And we're also going to be talking about our most anticipated games for next year. Each of us are going to come with our own list and talk about those and why we're so excited for them. Thank you guys for listening. It's been a great year. Can't wait for another one. Catch you guys next time.